Chaos.radio. Music, podcasts, entertainment.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of NEWSWAVE, written, produced and recorded in the heart of Cornwall by the team here at Chaos Radio. I'm your host Tom Howe and I'll be guiding you through some of the insightful guests and exciting news contents that we've enjoyed across Chaos Radio this past week. Now on today's show we join Jacob Willbourne, a mentor with a band of brothers and a horticultural therapist here at Chaos, to talk about men's mental health, breaking stigma and the power of community support. We check in with Falmouth University student Tia Boddey and lecturer Martha Dixon to present The Mouth, an exciting new platform to showcase the talents of our next generation of storytellers. As well as that, we take a trip to the Hall for Cornwall to learn how young and talented Cornwall marked 20 years of supporting gifted young people across the Duchy. And we hear from Councillor Jim McKenna to explore Cornwall Council and Public Health Cornwall's biggest ever survey on ageing.
NEWSWAVE.
We start this week by marking Men's Mental Health Month. To do that, I was joined by Jacob Willbourne, a mentor with a band of brothers and a horticultural therapist here at Chaos, to talk about men's mental health itself, breaking down stigmas and the power of support in a community. We explore Jacob's personal journey, why so many men still struggle to open up, and how initiatives like a band of brothers and Chaos are creating safe spaces for change.
NEWSWAVE.
My first question then, Jacob, is can we start by discussing how your own life experience has shaped the way that you approach conversations about men's mental health?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm at only the humble age of 33, but I would say that the society culture I was brought up around masculinity seems fairly old hat now. The way that technology has evolved means that the way we relate to each other is completely different. So I was, perhaps you could say, raised in a paradigm where toxic masculinity was the norm. It was so prevalent in the culture I was growing up in and being fed. So the idea of talking about feelings, talking about, anything outside of football and girls was a very, very strange. I had no vocabulary for being able to express what was going on inside myself, and also somewhat growing up working class as well. There's this element of you get on with it. You just get on with life. You take the struggles and you try and stay afloat. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'll let you decide.
Well, that's a emotion and a way of being that's replicated in men that I've spoken to, myself as well. We're of a similar age. What does Men's Mental Health Awareness Month represent to you then personally?
This is a really positive aspect, I think, that's coming through. I think the fact that it's being recognised in society that we do need to talk about men's mental health, because it's not just a male problem, obviously. Mental health has become a real epidemic across the board. But like I said, the elements of being able to talk about it amongst men is still so new, so burgeoning, that the fact that we're creating space in our society to really, and space and time to talk about that, I think is really positive. And we do need the awareness around it. We have to start building this vocabulary. We're at quite an exciting time in some ways because we're at the birth of this.
You touched upon it slightly in one of your previous answers there, but in your experience, why do you think so many men do still struggle to open up when it comes to talking about their mental health?
Yeah, well, this old paradigm of men need to be strong. And of course, it's not just men. Once again, everybody, we do need strength in our life. But sometimes our strength is in being vulnerable and knowing when to ask for help, knowing when to open up. We need community to be able to do that, to do those things. And communities of men, communities of women, and mixed communities, different age groups, different diversity across the board. One of the main struggles, I think, that element of being strong, the idea that feeling anything other than anger is somehow a weakness. It's a very old story, and it's simply not the truth. It's simply not the truth. We're such a wide range of emotions inside us. We're such diverse beings that we really should be celebrating this and sharing it with each other.
Yeah, mental health isn't picky, is it? It picks, unless it picks everyone. You know what
exactly.
I mean? I know in my own experiences, I just thought that, men, boys, whatever it might be, just didn't speak to other people about how they were feeling. It just wasn't talked about. And almost, if you did talk about it, you would feel sort of downtrodden or not listened to, or that just people would laugh at you or just wouldn't care.
Yeah, that's a very serious concern. The idea that someone might think I'm strange because I'm struggling, that I might be considered incapable of doing things because I have different emotions going on inside me. I think one other thing worth mentioning, and this is something that's come up a lot in the research I do around men's work, is a lot of the forums for men to be able to share have really fallen away in our society. Working men's clubs, even things like sports teams and stuff like that. There's so many less social forums where we can meet up and we can talk about things. We're becoming more and more isolated, even with the onset of very, very complicated social medias.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions men have about mental health, given your experiences and your work in the sort of stratosphere?
Yeah, so the emotion is really the key one. The idea that, and I've heard this said so many times, I don't feel emotions. I'm not an emotional person. Well, let me tell you, anger is definitely an emotion. And quite often, anger is a cover. Anger is a way of staying safe. Anger is a way of feeling energized and like you can move towards something. But really, underneath that, anger is part of a recipe. You can't just make a meal out of an onion. And so there are other things boiling away in there that if we don't look at them, they're going to rule us. So better to be in control of them by addressing them, looking at them. The shadow seems so much bigger if you don't turn to look at it.
It's so important, and a great analogy there. Let's move on to some of the things that you're doing within the community that you're involved with to support mental health with whoever it might be. Can you tell us more then about A Band of Brothers and the work that you and the organisation does here in Cornwall and beyond? Yeah,
we're very fortunate here in Cornwall. We have 3 different A Band of Brothers, what we call circles, outposts. There's one in Penzance, there's one in Falmouth, and there's a new one that's formed in St Austell, covering mid-Cornwall, so the Newquay to Truro area sort of thing. And the main work we do is around supporting young men who have had adverse life conditions, most likely coming out of the criminal justice system. So we receive a lot of support from the police for that reason, because we are implementing change in these young men's lives that we're going to stop them from reoffending. And the statistics are really there to prove that's very successful. Also, young men coming out of care. So traditionally, people who quite often didn't have fathers, ultimately, and being able to not try and step in or be a surrogate for anything, but just offering, like I said earlier, a sense of community, a sense of, hey, I've been there before. I've done that. I've done some stupid stuff and I got through it. You're not alone. So it's this sort of cross-generational pollination, to use a gardening term, where we're able to support each other, because the old men also benefit from mentoring the young men. So we have a really interesting range of people who come through, and like I said, the older men definitely benefit from being mentors as well. It's a really, really good sense of community. Some of the work we do within A Band of Brothers is what we call the mytho-poetic tradition. We're very fortunate to have inherited a guide map, shall we say, to the male psyche. And for me, it's a very, very beautiful map. It's story, it's poetry, it's embodiment, it's ritual, and it's sitting together as men. And sometimes it's also sharing food, which is very nice. And these elements are really the sort of, nuts and bolts of community. So I feel really passionate, and I think it makes a big difference in people's lives. I've seen guys who the only association they have with poetry is sitting in a classroom at school. And then suddenly, by the end of the process, they're completely addicted and bringing in sheets and sheets of poems they've found they feel very passionate about. And it's a really beautiful way to share. It feels like this is what we've always done. And sometimes we also get to sit around a fire, which is really nice. It makes a big difference.
Can you just tell us about the environment and support that's available through ventures including Chaos at Eden and Chaos Farm as well?
Yeah, so actually maybe I'll take it back a little bit.
Sure.
In the sense that I know in the past, I've struggled with some of my own masculine identity attached to my own work. So feeling that my work is where I get my sense of self-worth from. And one of the really powerful things about the horticultural therapy that we offer is that people are given tasks that make them feel useful and also give them a sense of pride as well as well-being around growing, around feeding the community, around being in community, and just general stewardship of the earth, which is so important at this time. So here at the farm, we have a group of volunteers who come every week. We grow food in our market garden. That food goes off to feed the community larders and food banks in Truro. The element of, like I said, the well-being that comes with that, the physical health that's improved. And also you very often find when people are in a situation where they feel held within a safe group and they feel like they're doing something productive, their parasympathetic nervous system just relaxes. They feel able to talk about what's going on inside them. They feel able to say things that they wouldn't ever say in other arenas, which is funny because we are working. But the sense of work is really, really rewarding for myself, most certainly, but I see through the people who come through the project.
The next question is, what impacts have you seen? You talked about it a little bit then, but if we could just delve into the impacts that you've seen when men come together in safe spaces, whether that's within the ABOB realm or things like the horticultural activities that you do, the impact of sharing experiences and the value of being together and conversation and giving back to the community and doing something good for the earth as well, like you said.
Yeah, completely. I mean, I'm particularly passionate about that element of caring for the earth. I think I'm a very fortunate person. I'm able-bodied. I was born a male in a very free society. The least I can do is give back and care for this place that I do so desperately care for. One of the things I've really, well, not even one of the things, but one of the elements I've seen with men come together is when I grew up, I did lots of sports and things like that with parts of teams. And there's a sense of bravado there. You know, you are there for that intent purpose of winning. And that kind of goes back into the changing room as well. This is very different. The men's work I do through a band of brothers is I've really seen another side of men where when the bravado drops, there's a real earnest and honest way of communicating with each other. And it's around these elements that we all go through. There can be really knotty subjects. They could be to do with our family relationships. They could be to do with our sexuality. They could be to do with our own sense of loss and grief in the world. But through the sharing, we create a container where we feel held. So something as difficult as grief, where it feels like the floor is just pulled out from underneath you, you can't fall that far when you're held in that safe space. You know that you're held. And it makes such a difference. It's something I'd never experienced before doing the work with a band of brothers.
But just what changes would you like to see in society and how it approaches mental health in general?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I'll keep it within the confines of masculinity because that's where my speciality lies. And I'm sure we'd probably both agree that the people who have the loudest voices in society at the moment tend to be the ones who are the most polarising. And I find that inaccurate to the kind of people I'm dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So the kind of voices I hear talking about masculinity, and I'm not casting any judgment or shame on these people like Andrew Tate and such, there's a lot of hate. There's a lot of hate from what I can tell in what they're saying. And for me, it looks a lot like self-hate as well. The idea that someone like Andrew Tate saying a man's value is placed on what he's able to give to a woman or a family, it's a very narrow path. That requires someone else to give you value. And I think it's unrealistic. I would like to see masculinity be able to step up to answering some of the questions that are being posed in our society. What happened in the 20th century with feminism was incredible. Women were able to vote, women were able to go to work. And it just seems to me like masculinity hasn't quite caught up yet. It's either you fight against it or you kind of lay down. It's like, well, actually feminism was about really bringing up the level of everyone. The rising tide raises all ships. And I think it's time for masculinity to kind of step up and go, okay, what does it look like to be better men? What does it mean to have stewardship of the earth, to look after our communities, and to do something meaningful with all that we have available to us in this green and pleasant land?
What advice then would you give to someone who feels disconnected and is considering joining one of the projects that you're involved in, or reaching out to a charity like ABOB, like the ones we've discussed here today?
Don't be afraid. They're very welcoming. And, you know, in Cornwall, we have the highest rate of volunteers per capita of any place in the UK. We're also one of the poorest places in the UK. That's not mutually exclusive. Unfortunately, and this is my opinion, Westminster's not going to ride in and save the day down here. But real people are. People in the community are going to do that. And we've got each other's back. If you feel that call, know that there are places out there which would welcome you and be so happy to have your little spark of life contributing to the great fire of change that's going on. I truly believe that healing needs to happen in community. We can do so much on our own, but we're communal animals. We're, you know, much like our mammalian cousins. We need to be in packs. We need each other to really be able to move forward and live a really rich and nourishing life.
Is there anything else you'd like to add that you feel is important for people to hear, or anything that we might not have covered so far?
As part of a band of brothers, we have something that's called a homecoming coming up on Wednesday, the 3rd of December at 3 Milestone Village Hall. And that is where the young men who have been through the journey, been through the process that we take these young men on, they finish the process and they step back into community. And rather than just being exclusively men, it's everyone. It's the social prescribers, it's their family, it's all of the circles of a band of brothers in Cornwall, and anybody else who feels like they want to get a little taste of what we're all about. So that's taking place Wednesday the 3rd, and anyone's more than welcome. It's a really, really touching event to know and see what everyone's been through. And I'm going to push it particularly because I'm playing the music for it.
Oh, well, there you go. You heard it here first.
Yeah. And then within my work at Chaos, in the new year, we have an exciting new project coming up. We used to run a project a few years ago called Men Outdoors. And that was run by a really, really great guy called Jay, who was down at 7th Rise on the Fowl River. And so we're starting that back up again. I'll be running that. And that's going to be about men being outdoors, funny enough. Nature.
That's what it says on the tin.
Yeah, exactly. We're going to be having nature connection, and we're going to be in community. So it's bringing together all of the elements that I really feel very passionate about. And me and my very, very cool boss, Jess, are at the moment setting that project up.
NEWSWAVE.
Now, earlier this week, I was delighted to be joined by Tia Boddey, an aspiring student from Falmouth University, to learn more about The Mouth, an exciting new platform to showcase the talents of our next generation of storytellers. Joined by lecturer Martha Dixon, Tia shared how The Mouth is helping students connect with local communities and to tell important stories, and why platforms like this matter so much for the future of journalism.
NEWSWAVE.
So The Mouth is a digital news site where every single time that we create a news story or do anything with our radio station, we publish them. So then they're all kind of like in the same area, but also to share the work that the students at Falmouth are doing. So that's across all 3 years. And yeah, it's really nice to kind of like scroll through and see all of your work and also everyone else's work. And it also just kind of makes it feel a little bit more real. What's it like presenting and seeing your work on The Mouth and sharing your stories on live radio as well? It's great. I feel like it, again, kind of like I said, it makes it feel real, and like the work that I'm doing is starting to kind of like come together a lot more. It's starting to kind of like look a little bit more professional. Sharing on radio is great. Like I have a lot of my friends and family that kind of like tune in, and like, yeah, it's great. I really love it. Tell us about one of your more recent pieces. What's happening right now on Falmouth's High Street, and how did you go about, first of all, recognising the story, finding the people to talk about it, and then telling the story? So at the moment on the High Street, we've seen a bunch of shops kind of like slowly start to disappear. So there are a lot of problems with kind of like business rates, and people struggling with pretty much running the businesses money-wise. First of all, I decided to kind of take to the Falmouth Community Information Facebook page and kind of asked for opinions from locals to kind of see whether the story could go somewhere. So I put out a post and I got about, I want to say like 52 responses from people. It was insane, but it was super helpful to see kind of like the perspectives of people that live here and have seen the shops kind of like disappear, or which ones have really powered through. It was also nice to see there were a few people that had run businesses on the Falmouth High Street that said that they did have to shut, and I got an opportunity to speak to them a little bit. I managed to find Maya, who runs Maya's on Killigrew Street, and she had a really great perspective on what it means to run a business in Falmouth. Her shop has only been open for about a year, and in the piece she kind of talks about how seeing all of the shops closed does make her really nervous, but she seems to have a lot of fight in her, and she loves what she does. She sees kind of like what it does to the people that come in and decide to spend their evening there. And it's just really great talking to some locals and kind of like what they think about the high street. I also talked to Karen, who works with the Business Improvement District, and she allowed me to kind of understand some of the context and why some of the shops are closing, but also like what they're doing to kind of help that.
Excellent. Communities are the best, aren't they? Martha, we'll talk about that a little bit in a second, if that's okay. If I could come just to you for a second, there is some really good talent coming out of the university where you are and elsewhere here in Cornwall. Why is it important for students to have platforms like the Mouth as a way of telling these stories and perfecting their craft?
Oh gosh, it's been so exciting seeing the students live on air on the radio. And I think it's such a fantastic opportunity for them because it gives them confidence. It gives them just this freedom of expression. They're telling these stories and people are listening, and they're also publishing them online. And what great experience, what better experience can you have than making real journalism for the audience? And you can now. I mean, maybe sort of 20 years ago, you wouldn't have a platform to publish yourself. You'd be waiting to try and work for the BBC, try and do some sort of work experience. And now you can actually publish your work. And I think it's a fantastic opportunity. We've had so much fun with the radio. Their shows are jam-packed with local stories. They've shown so much confidence at being radio presenters, which is not easy, is it, Tom?
Absolutely not.
And I'm just so proud of them. It's been very fun as well. It's quite a fun experience, I've got to say. It's not just all boring. It's fun and it's happening, and it's a bit of show business as well as journalism, isn't it?
Absolutely right. Look, what I love about journalism is that there's so much diversity, isn't there? There's so many different stories waiting to be told, and you can tell them in so many different ways. What kind of stories have the students been working on, and how are they telling them in different ways as well?
Well, I'm just so excited to hear this, as you said, just an incredibly diverse a range of stories, and all important to Cornwall. They're all very Cornish stories. One student's talking about the growth of football as opposed to rugby, which is really interesting. Another student's talking, they're very interested in sport. Lots of students are interested in sport and fashion and things like that. So another student talking about mixed gender football, which I thought was fascinating as well. And we've got another story about sustainable fashion, which was, I think, these new wetsuits that are being made where people are using recycled materials, things like that. They're producing so many interesting stories, and it's been great because they're not just the bog standard stories that you hear as well. They're really reaching out there with slightly different perspectives. They're young and doing fabulous stories. So I'm really excited.
Excellent. I love the energy. I love the creativity. I love that it's this kind of mood board for imagination, isn't it? Just going out and feeling empowered to go and collect these stories.
And we discussed this before they started. What stories do you want to tell? Why are these stories important to communities? What does it do for the audience? Giving a voice to the voiceless. Are we talking to business communities that you don't hear from? Are we talking to young people who play sport that don't hear from that often. So really important as well, isn't it? You know, we really believe in the power of journalism. Tia did an incredible job with this story, and I was so proud of her, and we were really excited to publish it. So I think stories about high streets, it affects most people, doesn't it, in the community? So it's a great story to tell. The students are looking to the community to find their stories. You know, they know about social media, so they're just asking people. They're out, they're putting those questions out there. What does the high street mean to you? And you get 52 answers. It's just incredible. So they're doing a great job of that. They're quite skilled at that, and that comes easily to them. And it's just interesting that people respond, and it's lovely to interact with the community, isn't it?
One thing that really stuck with me when I was a student at Falmouth was how important it is for the students who come from around the world, don't they? Not just from Falmouth, how important it is for them to connect with the local community. So then my question now is, how is the mouth being received by the community?
Well, I think that lots of people are watching and listening, aren't they? And we got loads of comments, didn't we, on the Facebook page, on the mouth, on the YouTube page last time we were on air.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think everyone was quite interested in listening in. So I think it's been fabulous for the audiences as well. And that's one of our jobs, is to get it out there a bit more. So we're trying to do promotion techniques, which is also a huge part of journalism now, is getting it out there. So we're doing little sort of fun little pieces for social media. We're taking the audience around our studio, for example, and showing them our studio, which was quite fun, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're doing things like that. We're just so excited to be partnering with Chaos and to have some of our stories being published on Chaos, and that makes us really excited, and it's great for the students, and I think they're worthwhile stories, so we appreciate the partnership.
Right, before I let you go, can you just remind our listeners where they can go to learn more about the mouth and enjoy the pieces that you're all putting together?
Well, we're live on air, and we go live on air via YouTube, but also via Source FM, which is a community radio station here in Falmouth, and that's every Friday at 12:05. So you can tune in there, and you can play us back on the Mouth Falmouth YouTube. And it's also, the website is the Mouth Falmouth, so you can check us out. Just search for us.
NEWSWAVE.
It would be rude not to share some of the excellent material being created by the students at Falmouth University now, wouldn't it? Let's start with some reporting by Tia herself then, who asks, what is a high street all about these days? Can locals enjoy shopping when most of the things they get are online? She finds that in Falmouth there have been some significant changes of late.
NEWSWAVE.
Falmouth is well known for its independent shops and beautiful seaside high street, but in recent years it's seen several familiar shops disappear, from Wilko and Poundland to most recently Anne's Cottage. Now, with Falmouth's much-loved Trago Mills under review, questions about the future direction of the high street are louder than ever. Falmouth's Business Improvement District Manager, Karen Cooksey, says the closures are part of several pressures hitting businesses.
Businesses are dealing with higher energy bills, staffing pressures, and national issues like the cost of living crisis. And all of this, of course, inevitably affects trading and then ultimately also store closures.
When asked about the recent closures online, many locals were quick to point out that expensive parking, a continuous increase in online shopping stemming from the pandemic, and high energy bills, business rates, and national insurance were problems too, which Karen also pointed out.
But I do genuinely think that we're in a stronger position than many towns. And Falmouth has a really, really strong independent offer. And with that comes a lot of resilience. And I do feel personally that we are going to weather this storm and come back fighting.
Maya runs a creative event space and shop called Maya's on Killigrew Street that's been open for nearly a year.
It's so sad to see so many businesses closing. It does make me feel anxious. Like, if they can't do it, why do I think that I could do it? And what if all these people can't succeed? Then why could I succeed? Why do I think that I'm different?
Despite these worries, Maya is determined to keep pushing forward as long as she's not losing money. But it seems to be that continuing to shop locally might just be what will help the high street.
If you just slowly transition to like putting the effort in to support your local businesses, it means so much. Like when you spend £50 on Amazon, it is just a drop in the bucket for Jeff Bezos, and he does not care. But the customers that come into my shop, I know them. I know most of them by name. I recognize their faces. I recognize people who came in on my opening day like a year ago. Like, you mean so much to me, and that money goes from you to me. And it supports me and my life and my business directly, which I then use to support other small businesses. It's just so important to keep that money local and spend it where it means something. It's a time where we don't have a lot of control over what's going on, over the way life is going, but you can vote with your money. That is how you take control of the situation.
So what is the Business Improvement District doing behind the scenes, and what should locals do?
But, you might have seen one of our campaigns, Falmouth After 5, which is all about encouraging people to come into town to enjoy our hospitality scene and our nightlife. So the residents who, worry the high street is declining, I'd say it's changing, but there's a huge amount of activity happening behind the scenes, and many local businesses are surviving and thriving. And to the residents, I'd say your support really, really makes a difference. And together we can shape a high street that reflects what Falmouth needs for the future.
NEWSWAVE.
Thank you, Tia. Over to Madison James now, and the Great British Surf Lifesaving Team, who are preparing to take on the world at the International Surf Rescue Challenge in New Zealand, with 2/3 of their squad from right here in Cornwall. Madison visited the team to find out more.
NEWSWAVE.
Surf Lifesaving GB is the national charity helping to keep Britain's beaches safe. Last year, they assisted 3,525 people, including 13 lives saved and 98 rescues. We spoke to trustee Ashley Mann, an active member, coach and GB high performance team manager.
Throughout the country, it's about 10,000 plus members through a multitude of clubs, and we've got a number of those down here in Cornwall. Beyond that, there's the sports side, local competitions known as carnivals, and then we have the international competitions. We attend from Great Britain as a team for the Worlds, the Europeans, and other international competitions such as the International Surf Rescue Challenge.
This competition will test strength, speed and rescue ability.
Been held in Mount Maunganui in New Zealand. It's a team-based competition conducted over 3 tests, including events such as swim, board, ski, beach events, all replicating those of a lifeguard. Competitors from all around the world, teams from New Zealand, Australia, South Africa and beyond, and including ourselves, Great Britain.
And Cornwall is making waves on the international stage with a huge local presence in this year's squad.
Made up of 6 male and 6 female competitors from all around the country. But 8 of those, we're really lucky, based down here at our Cornish clubs. And the special ones in here, I think we've got to mention brothers, Piran Phillips, Hayden Phillips. They'll be under the management of Dad Rob Phillips, who's the team manager, an ex-GB athlete himself. So quite a unique, special moment to have so many Cornish individuals, but to have a family.
We caught up with Piran to find out what it's like playing alongside his family.
To have my dad as the coach this year is pretty special. He's always been my coach. He still remains dad around the dinner table. We've got a pretty awesome relationship. Having my brother this year makes it even more special. Get to do it as a family. It's what we've always dreamed of, doing it together. In terms of rivalry, we always want to beat each other. We're competitive brothers. We want to go against each other, but we always hug it out at the end.
And brother Hayden shared his views.
It feels great to be selected to represent GB at the International Surf Rescue Challenge. It's my first time representing GB in the sport, and to be able to race alongside my brother in New Zealand is real special. The team this year, I think it's going to be real strong. They've got some very experienced athletes who are going to build some great team spirit.
The International Surf Rescue Challenge kicks off in New Zealand on November 26th, where Team GB and its Cornish heart will take on the best in the world.
NEWSWAVE.
Thanks, Madison. Let's hear from Darcy Trelaw now. With house building down in Cornwall for a third year, Jane Kirkham, MP for Truro and Falmouth, wants to make Cornwall affordable again. Darcy joins Jane and learns about her push to revive stalled projects and to secure funding.
NEWSWAVE.
A recent council meeting shared that house building in Cornwall has fallen for 3 years running amid soaring construction costs and limited government funding. With new homes becoming harder to deliver and fewer affordable options being built, young people in Cornwall face an increasingly difficult task, earning local wages while competing in a housing market that isn't producing enough homes. The Labour MP for Truro and Falmouth, Jane Kirkham, says the slowdown in construction has made building affordable homes more difficult in recent years.
So there was a time when Cornwall was quite good at building affordable housing, but that's dropped off in the last few years. It's been much harder, I think, since COVID in Ukraine to build down here, to get the funding, to get the supplies, to get the contractors as well. So to be fair to Cornwall Council, it's been difficult across the board. So the government has recognised that, and we've set a housing target for Cornwall, but to help across the country build those houses. We don't just need houses, because in Cornwall there are lots of beautiful luxury houses that people can't afford to live in. We need houses that people, as you were saying, young people can afford to buy or to rent and to live in. So what the government has done is set up a £39 billion affordable and social housing fund. That drops, the money comes down in the next financial year. What I've done, working very closely with Cornwall Council, is we've put together a housing strategy with a pipeline of projects. A lot of those are stalled projects. So we've been working with the government and with Homes England, who are the government's housing arm. They will be looking after that 39 billion to work out how we can plug those gaps, those viability gaps. And you may need to plug that gap so you can build affordable. And that's what these affordable housing schemes and funds are for.
New figures show that rising prices, soaring rents, and limited housing supply are locking many out of the property market. According to the Office for National Statistics, the average house price in Cornwall hit £289,000 in August this year, up nearly 3% from last summer. This was higher than the rise in the whole Southwest region over the same period. Meanwhile, wages in Cornwall continue to be 20% lower than the national average.
The other thing we really need to do is make sure we've got the jobs here that pay enough that you can afford housing. We're working very hard. I'm coming back to Cornwall tomorrow for the announcement of the critical minerals strategy. So we're going to start mining lithium and tin again in Cornwall. And those jobs will be high value jobs. They'll be jobs that people will be paid sort of £40,000 plus to work in. And those are the kind of jobs we need in Cornwall for our young people so that they can get on the housing ladder as well.
We spoke to Deanna, a 21-year-old first-time buyer from Camborne.
So a really big hardship along the way was realising that by myself I would never be able to get a mortgage. So me and my partner went to the mortgage advisor together and we asked how much I could borrow by myself and how much we could borrow together. And the difference was huge. By myself, it was shocking, really.
For many young people, the dream of living and working in Cornwall now depends on whether the county can turn plans into homes that are truly affordable.
NEWSWAVE.
Thank you to Tia, Madison and to Darcy for allowing us to share those pieces. Like what you hear? Why not check out The Mouth, a weekly broadcast filled with local news and features. Listeners can tune into The Mouth every Friday on Source FM. Now, international disaster relief charity ShelterBox is hosting a heartwarming evening of carols, community and giving at Truro Cathedral on Thursday, 4th of December. In support of their ongoing Christmas fundraising appeal. It promises to be another unforgettable evening, bringing people together to support families around the world who have lost their homes due to conflict and disaster. Bryna Jordan sat down with one of the organisers, JP Dodwell, Facilities and Events Manager at ShelterBox, who starts off by explaining the aim of their Christmas appeal.
NEWSWAVE.
Christmas fundraising appeal is really important for us here at ShelterBox. So as we all look to prepare for to celebrate this festive season, there are sadly millions of families out there that are facing the harsh reality of displacement caused by things like earthquakes and floods and conflict. So our appeal is to help people hopefully look beyond those traditional gifts and maybe look to support other people that might be in crisis at this time. And so our appeal is focused around kind of life-saving shelter. So looking to support people with not just shelter items, but also bringing clean water or warmth through blankets and things like that, and solar lights, so lighting and things like that. So during these winter months, we focus on certain areas of the globe where we look to kind of provide those items. Places like Syria and Afghanistan are currently our Christmas appeal focus this year, and over there temperatures suddenly drop below freezing, and people who have been displaced there are at risk of dying from the cold, sadly. And so we look to tailor make these packages at this time of year so people get all those necessary items to keep them warm and survive what can be a really, really harsh season for them.
Yes, for sure. I really like the tagline of the whole campaign, just give the gift of shelter this Christmas, because I think it's something that we all take for granted quite a lot, especially in the UK. Yeah. We're quite privileged as we are. So to be able to give back this Christmas into something that is so meaningful for someone that we might not appreciate it as much, I think is a great campaign.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's quite it's why we've done well and grown as an organisation is that one simple idea is what would you do? And you can put yourself in that situation. You can ask yourself, if you had 3 minutes to move from your home because disaster was about to strike, what would you take with you and what would you have to leave behind? And once that's done, how would you look to rebuild? And that's the question that inspired our founders to start ShelterBox 25 years ago, and it's still the question and that kind of statement that we still hold true to and look to be like, what can we provide those communities that we look to support in that moment of disaster and crisis to help them rebuild? And so it's quite a simple idea. I mean, obviously, the more you think about it, and the more you learn, and the more you kind of delve into that issue and that problem, the more complex it can be. But it is quite simple a thing to understand on a very basic level, and is really inspiring for people, and was inspiring for me when I first heard about ShelterBox many years ago.
So this year's Carol concert, we touched on it a little bit. It is the last time you did this was all the way back in 2023, 2 years ago. What can people look forward to this year's Carol concert at Truro Cathedral as it's returning?
Well, I hope it's going to be a chance for all of us to get together and have a little bit of let's put a little bit of joy, really. I know we're talking about very heavy and weighty subjects, but really it is a chance for us all to come together as a community right here in Cornwall and maybe a little bit further beyond, and join us to enjoy time spent with us. We're really lucky and delighted to have the author and presenter Fern Britton. She'll be coming down and reading an extract from the Mousel Cat. And wonderfully, we've got Harry Glasson, who wrote, obviously, Cornwall My Home, who will also be performing on the light. Alongside the Clams, a local all-female sea shanty group will be singing, as well as two community choirs, the wonderful Ingleheart Singers and the Suitcase Singers. So there's lots of singing, lots of entertainment. There'll be some amazing readings from the Dean of Truro, alongside our CEO, Sanj. And there'll also be like stories from the field as well, from some of our other members of deployable staff. So there will be a real cross section. So there will be moments to reflect on the world as it is, but also a time to celebrate and hopefully have a little bit of joy and enjoy some Christmas carols together as a community here in Cornwall.
Do you have a favourite memory from the previous concert? I was reading that there was a fire alarm in 2023 that turned out to be a great thing.
I mean, I would like to say it was a perfectly organised event, which it was. I wouldn't take away from that. But the absolute moment of magic had to be the unexpected fire alarm going off, which meant that over 700 of our guests had to evacuate the cathedral. But that just led to this wonderful moment that luckily it was not raining on that day, so we all gathered outside of the cathedral and we just kept going. We continued to join in song under the stars, and it was just wonderful. I mean, I couldn't have planned anything as special or as beautiful as that. And it was a real moment where, despite adversity, despite all the kind of crazy things that can happen, it's just really encapsulated what ShelterBox is about as well. It's like, even those moments when things can go wrong, together, you'll show resilience, togetherness, and we can still come together and do something wonderful. It is by far, I mean, I'd like to say we planned it, we really didn't, and it was a very, very special moment. I promised to not personally pull the fire alarm this time, and I do hope we get to stay inside the cathedral for the entire of the event. It was a moment in time that was just special, and I'll always look back as being really fond that I was there to see and experience it. What a moment. So yeah, truly special.
And this concert marks the end of ShelterBox's 25th anniversary year, which is a huge year. What does this milestone mean for the charity and also the communities that you support?
I think it's been a great year for us to look at, really. I think it's given us a chance to really honestly take a moment to reflect, to look at sometimes you can get, I think at ShelterBox, if I'm honest, sometimes you can get bogged down in the just trying to push forward all the time and trying to keep going and to react and respond to some of the crises that we do. And it gave us that moment to stop and reflect and look back at where we started down here in Cornwall and what we've achieved in that time, really. So it was a real great moment for us as an organisation to reflect back on past achievements and also to recognise where we started and how we've grown, and to also remind ourselves of those supporters and communities that have helped us achieve that along the way. There have been so many wonderful supporters across the UK and internationally that have helped us get there, from individuals doing bake sales through to community groups, Rotarians, Rotary clubs, scouting groups, schools across the entire board has been a wonderful moment. I think that 25-year kind of commemoration for us has given us a chance to reflect back on that, but also that has given us the energy to look forward, to plan, to think, okay, so what does the future look like for ShelterBox? Sadly, we would like to think there would be a world where we were not required, but we are, and so it gives us the strength to look back and give us the strength to move forward and to reinvigorate ourselves to continue the work that we do, and hope to help those communities out there that continue to need our support along with the support of others around us. So yeah, we hope to continue moving forward and continue hopefully for another 25 years wherever we're needed.
And back to the Carol concert, could you remind us of when and where the event is taking place and how people can get tickets?
It is on Thursday, so next Thursday, the 4th of December. It's being held at Truro Cathedral. The Carol concert will be between 7 and 9 p.m, so doors opening at 6:15. To get tickets, it's on a donation basis. There is no fixed price to come in, so we do request a donation if possible. Those tickets are available via online in Eventbrite. You can call us on 0300 0300 500 to speak to one of our team here that can assist you with that, or pop along to our website, so shelterbox.org. There's a link on there that can kind of direct you to the right place. Donations online, and that's how we're kind of doing the tickets. But we hope to see you next Thursday, the 4th of December at Truro Cathedral.
NEWSWAVE.
Okay, our final stop on the NEWSWAVE tour this week takes us to Cornwall Council and Public Health Cornwall, who have launched the county's biggest ever survey on ageing, and they want to hear from you. They're urging everyone from children to older adults to take part, and the findings will help shape Cornwall's bid to become an age-friendly community. Councillor Jim McKenna, the portfolio holder for adult social care and health partnerships, joins Cheryl Gordon to discuss the age-friendly survey.
NEWSWAVE.
So the council got wind of the fact that nationally there are over 100 areas, so they might be towns, they might be smaller areas, which are now accredited to become an age-friendly community. And I had conversations with officers, and we felt it was a good idea to see whether we could do something specific, not just for a particular area of Cornwall, but for the whole of Cornwall, which I think will be amongst the first councils to do that. So, age-friendly communities are, as you probably know, places that enable people to age well and live a good later life. There are 8 key themes that we would need to satisfy when we put an application in. That's outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, housing, social participation, and linked to that, respect and social inclusion, civic participation and employment where appropriate, communication and information, and community and health services. And by that, I mean access to all of those things where possible.
Sometimes things like transportation in Cornwall can be quite an issue, sort of bus services and things like that, especially if you live in like remote places. Sometimes, transportation can be a really big one to encounter and know how to manage, can't it?
Absolutely, and it's a key thing, because with Cornwall having such a large proportion of the duchy which is rural, there are areas which haven't got appropriate bus services. Train services clearly are linked to the main line primarily, with one or two offshoots. So another thing the council will be looking at is actually whether we can not just encourage the bus providers to slightly extend their network, or as a minimum protect the network we have. But we'll also be looking at community buses and whether they can play a role, because places like, I live in Penzance and St Just, which is in the very far west, they have 2 community minibuses which ferry people to and from health appointments. They might be Trillis, they might be West Cornwall Hospital. It might just be sort of taking somebody to the optician who can't drive, and there's an irregular bus service. So I think transport is key, but I think the thing to emphasise is it's not just older people, it is the whole community really, which needs access to that sort of transport.
What kinds of things are you hoping to learn from younger voices in Cornwall?
Well, I think the starting point would be to try to get some clarity and evidence on what the average young person thinks about older people, and also whether they interact with them. Because some people will have grandparents, they'll have uncles, aunties around, others won't. So it'll be interesting to see what the sort of dynamic is there, and also as to whether sort of getting older is seen as something positive or negative. The opinions tend to vary. And so just to try and make sure, because at the moment we've had just under 2,000 responses already, but the majority have been older people. We're in touch now with schools and colleges to say, this is happening. Do you want to get your voice heard? Here's how to access the survey itself.
What are some of the biggest challenges older people in Cornwall face, and how might this survey help address them?
Well, as a starting point, access to healthcare services, especially in rural areas, and to some extent some of the maritime areas, the seaside areas, can be difficult. Again, I'm conscious it's a privilege to live in Penzance and serve Penzance, but we have a really good hospital, we have a really good network of services, but a lot of places which are by the sea don't. So I think the aspiration would be to improve access to those services. Possibly, and I think this is a priority for the NHS, to actually, rather than centralise everything, to actually have community hubs, which potentially could include some, not just medical advice, but access to sort of basic treatment and so forth as well. Loneliness and social isolation is a big one. Everybody knows that, especially those living on their own without family support nearby. So that's a key part of what we would like to tackle. And then, as we've sort of touched on, in terms of the difficulty for quite a lot of people, to access transport options, which will get them where they want to be when they need to be there. And again, linked to that is accessible housing. We are slightly short in terms of the supply at the moment of supported housing, supported living developments. So that again is something which is a priority for me in my cabinet position, working with a cabinet member for housing. And so the survey sort of itself would aim to identify areas where improvements can be made to help older residents lead healthier and more fulfilling lives. It also helps the council, because we're a new administration. We got elected in May. The cabinet was fully formed in June. And one of my priorities, but which is supported by colleagues, is supporting people to live healthier and dignified lives. So it's really important, I think, that we look after people of all ages, or we support people of all ages, rather than just particular areas.
Following this survey, how can everyone from the policymakers to the local organisations and communities learn from the findings and ultimately get involved?
Well, we'd love the more people that get involved, the better. The better it reflects on the sort of community sort of focus that Cornwall traditionally has. So, from my perspective, I'd be fascinated, actually. Some of the initial responses, and I said we've had more than 2,000 already, or nearly 2,000 already, have been really interesting. And I really want to see the feedback when the survey closed. So I think by January time, we'll have some more information in terms of what people have said, what the key themes are, what we need to tackle, where the gaps are, those sorts of things. We're already talking to colleagues in NHS England, because they've expressed an interest, because it's a whole council thing, they've expressed an interest in knowing more. And so the hope is that with some support, some targeted support from them, we can potentially do more than possibly we might have been able to do originally. And then we're going to share the findings from the survey. We're setting up a new working group, which will pull together the application for an age-friendly community, which, as I said, will go in at some point, sort of, I would say, towards the sort of April, May time, maybe. But I'm really keen to see not just decision makers, people like me sat on that, but also people from the community who've got something to offer. Maybe they've got direct experience, maybe they want to start something. So I am really keen, and I'd be impressed this on officers, that it can't just be people in sort of shirts and ties and whatever else. It needs to be community reps as well, and also possibly one or two from the youth parliament as well, if we can get that sorted as well.
Finally, for listeners who want to take part, where can they find the survey and how long do they have to complete it?
First of those, the survey itself online is on the council's Let's Talk Cornwall website. And they simply need to go onto that and click onto a heading which is the age-friendly survey. So if people want to do it online, it's straightforward. If people, and a number of older people, as you'll know, aren't necessarily as IT literate as younger people are, they can request a paper copy, and there's a number to call, which is 0300 1234 100.
NEWSWAVE.
Okay, that's all we've got time for on this week's edition of NEWSWAVE. A big Chaos Radio to Jacob Willbourne, a mentor with a band of brothers and a horticultural therapist here at Chaos. To lecturer Martha Dixon, and to Falmouth University students Tia Boddey, Madison James and Darcy Trelaw. To JP Dodwell, Facilities and Events Manager at ShelterBox. And of course, to Councillor Jim McKenna, the Portfolio Holder for Adult Social Care and Health Partnerships at Cornwall Council. And as ever, a final thank you to you for listening and helping support local journalism to thrive. To catch up on all our coverage, as well as to check out our extensive back catalogue of interviews and shows, head on over to chaos.radio. And why not check out our fresh new news service as well? Just head to chaosnews.uk. And remember, if you have a local news story that you'd like to share with us, email news@chaos.radio or search Chaos Radio UK across socials. That's it, you're up to date here on Chaos. I'm Tom Howe, thank you so much for listening. Whatever it is that you're doing in the community this week, be sure to add a little bit of chaos.
NEWSWAVE.
Chaos.radio. Music, podcasts, entertainment.